A woman's eyes often become a mystery for a man, something he can gaze into endlessly, and the deeper he looks, the less peace he feels, and the more he senses a storm. In one moment, she radiates warmth, her smile dissolving every wall you've built around your heart over the years, making you feel almost redeemed. But the very next moment, her gaze turns cold, her gestures distant, her silence unbearable, and you find yourself asking, what changed? Was it your mistake? Or was it always part of an invisible game she plays, perhaps without even realizing it? Behind her laughter, her charm, her beauty, and her outward confidence, there are cracks invisible to the eye. Not surface flaws anyone could notice, but deep psychological vulnerabilities, subtle emotional mechanisms that guide her choices, her reactions, her love, and her fears. Men often mistake these for random moods or unpredictable swings, but in truth, they are patterns, hidden weaknesses that quietly shape her relationship with the world and with you. And if you learn to see these patterns, to notice them in everyday details and in her words, you unlock a level of understanding most men never reach. That knowledge will forever change how you view women, love, and even power. Because to see the unseen is to hold a kind of strength very few ever possess. But remember, not all weaknesses are equal. The 9th and 10th are the most dangerous of all. They don't just influence her actions, they shatter the very lens through which you thought you understood women. The first weakness, rarely spoken about, yet silently directing much of her behavior, is her dependence on attention. In today's world, where every glance, every notification, every short message becomes a signal of validation, a woman finds herself in a constant search for proof of her significance. One photo uploaded online, a few dozen likes, dozens of comments, and her brain receives a quick hit of dopamine, like a small dose of pleasure, urging her to chase that feeling again and again. But attention isn't just numbers on a screen. It's the way a man looks at her across a room, the fleeting compliment from a stranger, the subtle curiosity of a coworker. All of it becomes fuel for the fire within, a craving she rarely admits even to herself. The danger is that attention quickly stops being a natural expression of interest and turns into an addiction, no different from any other. She doesn't need to love the man who gives it, she doesn't need to respect him, she doesn't even need to find him worthy. The act itself, being noticed, being acknowledged, being validated, is what matters. It confirms her existence, anchors her sense of worth, and without it, her inner world begins to shake. And when that stream of attention fades, anxiety is born. Am I no longer interesting? Have I lost my beauty? Has someone else taken my place? Even silence, a missing message, or the absence of a compliment can start to feel like a threat. In those moments, she becomes a prisoner of her own thoughts. She replays old conversations, rereads past messages, searches for hidden signs, desperately trying to pinpoint where the flow of attention began to slip away. This cycle triggers mood swings, sudden coldness, and emotional outbursts that men often dismiss as irrational or moody. But in reality, they are the symptoms of withdrawal, the hidden tremors of someone denied their usual dose. Attention addiction isn't just a weakness, it is the foundation of many that follow. It's what makes her vulnerable to flattery, what drives her impulsive decisions in love, what fuels her habit of overinterpreting every word and gesture. A man who doesn't recognize this will always be bewildered by her shifts, never realizing that what he sees as chaos is simply the rhythm of her dependency. And the stronger this addiction becomes, the harder it is for her to control herself, the more unpredictable her words and actions grow. But the most important truth is this. From this very weakness emerges the next, even more destructive one: emotional overthinking, when the smallest sign explodes into catastrophe. The second weakness, which follows attention addiction like its shadow, is the woman's habit of overthinking, the eternal tendency to see more than is truly there. For a man, a short "okay" in a text might mean nothing, just a quick response. But for her, it can ignite an inferno of speculation. Her mind doesn't stop at facts, it spins entire stories, where every punctuation mark becomes evidence, every silence becomes a threat, every shift in tone spawns dozens of imagined scenarios. She doesn't simply think, she lives these imagined stories as if they've already happened. A small delay in your reply suddenly means fading feelings. A shift in your tone becomes proof of irritation. A change in your routine feels like a clear sign that her place in your life is weakening. A man may have no idea that his silence, his one-word answers, even his focus on work can become, in her eyes, symbolic of a looming disaster. Her emotions color her perception so vividly that reality and imagination blur together. Joy turns instantly into anxiety, confidence into doubt, curiosity into fear. Outwardly, she may smile, but inside, her heart tightens because the invisible enemy her mind has created is already attacking. That enemy doesn't exist outside her, yet for her, it is real because she feels it, and what she feels defines her world. Modern technology intensifies this weakness. Where once it took days or weeks for doubts to grow, now a single typing bubble, a vanished notification, or a delayed reply is enough to shake her stability. In a world where texting replaces conversation, she is fighting silent battles a man cannot even see, against shadows, guesses, and her own interpretations, and too often he becomes the imagined opponent, though he has done nothing at all. The danger of overthinking is that it erodes clarity and trust. Even if a man is honest, open, and steady, her imagination can twist his words into traps, his pauses into threats, his fatigue into betrayal. She lives in a world where every detail is magnified, where her feelings amplify suspicions into realities. And from this comes the next weakness: constant comparison, the insecurity that grows inside her. Because if she can invent dangers where none exist, how could she possibly avoid seeing flaws in herself, even in places where no one else ever notices them? The third weakness, which silently governs much of her inner life, is insecurity about her appearance. And the most paradoxical truth is that it often afflicts the very women everyone else sees as icons of beauty. She can walk into a room and immediately draw every gaze, her smile lighting up the space, her presence undeniable. Yet, alone with her mirror, all that vanishes. She doesn't see radiance, she sees flaws. A slight curve, a faint shadow under the eyes, a hair out of place, a mark on her skin. What others don't notice or find insignificant, she magnifies into proof of imperfection. Social media magnifies this further. A feed filled with carefully curated images, filtered faces, sculpted bodies becomes a relentless whisper. You're not enough. You could look better. You should be like her. Compliments and admiration from men may reach her ears, but they rarely quiet the deeper voice within, because somewhere in her memory lies a careless remark spoken years ago, and its echo still drowns out every word of praise she hears today. Her insecurity turns her into a prisoner of endless self-correction. She spends hours choosing outfits, perfecting her makeup, adjusting every detail, all in fear of being seen in her real state. That fear makes her twice as vulnerable. She becomes even more dependent on praise and at the same time even more fragile in the face of criticism. To a man, this may be invisible. He might assume her beauty is her strength, that her confidence is natural. But in truth, beauty is often the very source of her inner struggle. The more people admire her, the higher the expectations she sets for herself. And those expectations make her all the more vulnerable to attention and to flattery. Thus, insecurity about appearance creates a paradox. On the one hand, it makes her more receptive, even open to words of admiration, because she craves them. On the other, it keeps her in a constant state of tension, because the inner voice never lets her rest. That hidden fracture behind her smile lays the foundation for the next weakness, her vulnerability to flattery, where the right words can pierce every defense and reach the deepest core of her heart. The fourth weakness, closely tied to her insecurity, is vulnerability to flattery. A woman may appear strong, independent, outwardly confident, yet inside there is always a part of her that longs for recognition, that yearns to hear she is seen for more than just the surface. This is why words, spoken at the right moment and in the right way, can slip past even the thickest walls she has built to shield herself from the world. Flattery works like fire poured onto her emotions. But here lies the key. Not every compliment carries weight. Empty lines like "you're beautiful" or "you have pretty eyes" may earn a faint smile, nothing more. The true power lies in words that strike her hidden fears or the qualities she secretly doubts in herself. If she questions her femininity, a remark about her softness breaks her armor. If she doubts her intellect, praise for her mind convinces her she is truly seen. If she fears being just one of many, a compliment about her uniqueness lands like a revelation. This is the danger. The man who knows how to speak such words gains access to her most delicate core. She begins to feel he sees her more deeply than anyone else, that he recognizes the truth hidden from the world. In her mind, this becomes proof of a special bond. She tells herself he is the one who understands her essence, and in that moment her walls collapse, she opens, she trusts, and she begins to give herself emotionally. Such openness carries both power and peril. Power because it creates intimacy and closeness. Peril because the man may not be who she believes he is. Her trust, once a gift, can turn into a weapon against her. Flattery not only strengthens her confidence, but binds her to the one who spoke the right words. She craves that feeling again and again, and soon emotional dependency takes root. In those moments, her decisions cease to be rational. She agrees to things she would normally reject. She shares secrets she guards from her closest friends. She reveals emotions she usually buries deep. All because her heart whispers, "He understands me." And here the next weakness is born: impulsive decisions in love. When trust collides with her need to be recognized, she may plunge headfirst, blind to the red flags that were always in plain sight. She can seem cautious, even unreachable, but the moment she feels a surge of emotion, her logic yields. She can fall in love suddenly and completely, as if a hidden switch inside her cuts off reason and lets her heart seize control. In such moments, it feels like destiny. She sees in a man not just a person, but a sign, an answer to her unspoken prayers. She begins to construct a future in her mind before truly knowing him. Evenings together, late-night talks, adventures, even long-term dreams. This rush feels natural to her because it is painted with the strength of emotion, and for her, feelings always outweigh logic. But here lies the danger. Impulsiveness blinds her. She stops noticing the red flags, ignores the alarms, justifies what should make her wary. She convinces herself that rudeness is passion, silence is depth, jealousy is love. Her heart fuses with illusion, and pulling her away from it becomes nearly impossible. Impulsive choices in love strip her of stability. She invests too much, too quickly, and this makes her vulnerable. The man she attaches to receives not only her affection, but her strength, her energy, her inner world. And if he does not give back in equal measure, anxiety soon takes over. The more she invests, the greater the fear of losing him becomes. Her behavior then grows erratic. She may seem clingy, jealous, even desperate, all in an attempt to preserve what only yesterday felt eternal. But beneath it all lies a single truth, the terror of being left. For her, loss is catastrophe. And so her impulsiveness in love inevitably drives her to the next weakness, the deep, often unconscious fear of abandonment. The sixth weakness, born from impulsive choices and overwhelming emotional involvement, is this haunting fear of abandonment. A man may not notice it at the start, but it almost always lives inside her. It resides in her memory, in her past, in her subconscious, shaping countless choices she makes. For her, love equals safety, and the loss of a loved one feels like the collapse of an entire world. The thought that he might leave, stop replying, grow cold, or replace her awakens not sadness but panic, not quiet sorrow but a storm in which anxiety consumes every thought, every feeling. Her imagination conjures dozens of scenarios in which she is left alone, and each one she experiences as if it were already real. In this state, she often makes compromises that erode her dignity. She may stay in toxic relationships simply to avoid the emptiness of solitude. She may forgive wounds that cut deeply, excuse behaviors that destroy her spirit. Sometimes she holds on not to love, but to the fear of loss itself. She clings not because he makes her happy, but because the idea of separation terrifies her more than any pain inside the relationship. This creates a paradox. Outwardly, she may appear strong and independent, proud and confident, yet the moment she senses a threat, a pause in communication, a colder tone, a shift in his distance, panic floods her. The mask of strength crumbles, and the vulnerable part of her emerges, trembling at the very thought of being replaceable. And it is this fear that often compels her to build emotional walls. To avoid the pain of abandonment, she begins to hide her heart behind layers of sarcasm, coldness, or indifference. But those walls are not true strength. They are a defensive reflex, and the higher they grow, the harder it becomes for her to experience real closeness. Thus, the fear of abandonment quietly leads her into the next state, the building of emotional walls. The seventh weakness is born as a response to the fear of abandonment, yet it becomes a new form of inner prison. These are her emotional walls, invisible barriers she raises around her heart to protect its most vulnerable core. To a man, she may appear strong, confident, even independent to the point of coldness. She jokes, throws out sarcastic remarks with ease, carries herself with irony and apparent composure. But behind that act lies something else entirely. Her true weakness is the fear of being hurt again, so she hides her tenderness behind a mask of strength. These walls are not simply a trait of character. They are a survival mechanism forged over time. Every betrayal, every broken promise, every deception becomes a brick in the fortress she builds. She has learned not to show tears, to replace confessions with laughter, to cloak her real feelings in sharp words. And the man who sees her like this may believe she is inaccessible, that she truly has a heart of stone. But in reality, her heart is still alive, warm, and aching for closeness. It is simply buried too deep. The paradox of these walls is that they protect her from pain, but at the same time deprive her of what she desires most, genuine intimacy. When a man draws too near, she instinctively pushes him away, with a joke, with a cold glance, with a display of independence. It is as if she is saying, "I don't need anyone." Yet inside she longs for someone who will push through her defenses and see her real self. The danger lies in this. In the moment she finally opens the door and lets a man in, she becomes completely defenseless. Her trust is absolute, her openness complete, and any wrong word or careless action wounds her 10 times more deeply than it would a woman without such walls. Her life becomes a pendulum. Outwardly, she appears untouchable. Inwardly, she trembles at the possibility of being shattered by a single misstep. Emotional walls make her behavior contradictory. One moment she is warm and tender, the next cold and sharp. A man might think this is a game, a form of manipulation, but it is not. It is her eternal struggle between the yearning to be loved and the fear of being betrayed again. Every wall is not just protection, it is a signal of how deep her vulnerability really runs. And this very vulnerability leads her into the next weakness. When she finally opens up, she often gives her trust to the wrong person. Her hunger for closeness fuses with her willingness to risk, and she can place her heart in hands that do not deserve it. The eighth weakness, born from the sudden collapse of these emotional walls, is her tendency to trust the wrong people. A woman can hide her heart for years behind sarcasm, independence, and pride, but when she finally decides to open her soul, she does it not halfway, but completely. She breaks through her defenses in a single rush and immediately gives everything: attention, care, energy, time, loyalty, faith. In her world, trust is not a cautious gesture. It is an act of surrender. The problem is that her heart opens not gradually, but in a leap, and this leap makes her vulnerable. She may notice the red flags, hear the voice of doubt inside, but when her emotion seize control, she convinces herself otherwise. She chooses to believe in the brighter version of reality, ignoring the obvious signs of danger. And into her life steps someone who exploits her trust, not for closeness, but for advantage or amusement. In those moments, she does not just love, she invests the most guarded part of herself. And if that person proves unworthy, she loses not only the bond, but also a piece of her own confidence in the world. Betrayal is not felt merely as another's fault, it becomes proof of her blindness. She begins to doubt her own worth, her ability to tell truth from lies, whether she deserves love at all. The cruelest part is that often she realizes she is trusting the wrong person even while it happens. She sees the cracks, senses the inconsistencies, notices the contradictions, yet her desire to believe outweighs everything. Holding on to illusion feels safer than facing truth that would shatter her hope once again. And this makes the fall even more painful. For when trust breaks, the very foundation of her strength crumbles with it. After such blows, she raises her walls even higher, hides her vulnerability even deeper. Yet beneath it all, she still craves connection. And so the cycle begins anew: protection, opening, trust, disappointment. A cycle that may repeat endlessly until she learns to recognize her own weaknesses. But until that happens, her heart remains a prisoner of the past. It clings to memories, searching for proof that something real once existed. And so the next weakness awakens, subtler, more dangerous than the rest: romanticizing the past, when memory distorts reality and chains her to illusions instead of life. The ninth weakness, often the most invisible yet the most destructive, is this idealization of the past. A woman can be modern, ambitious, and strong, yet her mind preserves images that grow mythic with time. She replays past love as if it were her favorite film: the laughter, the glances, the lightness, the thrill. The memories grow brighter, the emotions more vivid, while her mind cleverly edits out the betrayals, the arguments, the pain. What remains is an illusion, the sense that once, long ago, love was perfect, and everything in the present is unconsciously measured against that ideal. This makes her a prisoner of memory. Any new man, no matter how kind or devoted, faces an unseen rival, the phantom of her past. And this rival is dangerous precisely because he is not real. He is built from fragments of the best moments, scrubbed clean of flaws. No living man can ever compete with the myth her memory has created. Romanticizing the past becomes a trap not only for her but for anyone who tries to build something real with her. Outwardly, she can smile and even fall in love, yet deep inside she carries the constant measure. Does he love me the way that one did? Does he look at me the same? Is he as close? She never says it aloud, but it dictates her feelings and choices all the same. The danger of this weakness is that it robs her of happiness in the present. Reality feels incomplete, insufficient, pale compared to the fantasy. She longs to repeat what once was, though in truth it no longer exists. The more she clings to the past, the more she loses her future. A quiet melancholy settles in her soul, dulling her joy without her even realizing it. For a man, this creates a cruel dilemma. He may be rejected not because of his faults, but because he does not match the ghost she compares him to. It makes her unpredictable. She can walk away from someone good in search of a shadow that no longer lives. And here lies the threshold to the final, most dangerous weakness. When the past becomes her ideal and feelings replace facts, she no longer lives in reality, but in the world of emotion. And this leads to the 10th weakness, when emotions become her only truth. The 10th weakness is the deepest and most consuming. For a woman, emotions often become reality itself, eclipsing logic and fact. A man may argue with reason, defend himself with clarity, explain with precision. But if her heart feels differently, his words mean nothing. In her inner world, feelings define truth. She can love with all her being even when reason tells her the relationship is destroying her. She can fear loss even when he is faithful and constant. She can be jealous without cause because the sensation of betrayal feels as real as betrayal itself. This nature makes her both extraordinary and fragile. She can love with a devotion few men can match. She feels with her whole being, and that makes her vivid, magnetic, unforgettable. Yet the same depth that makes her radiant can also blind her. Emotion can twist her world, making illusion stronger than reality. She can forgive the unforgivable because her heart overpowers her mind. She can cling to the past because memory stirs a longing that feels like truth. She can leap into new love because the rush of feeling feels more real than reason. The danger is that emotions move faster and strike harder than thought. They sweep her away, and only later does reason attempt to explain or soften them. But by then, the choice has already been made. This is why she can appear unpredictable, why her storms erupt suddenly, why her decisions often seem illogical to men. In truth, they are logical, but only within her emotional universe. Here lies her dual essence. What makes her magnetic also makes her fragile. Her strength is in feeling deeply. Her weakness is in not always distinguishing feeling from fact. The man who does not understand this will forever be lost in her reactions. But the man who learns to see it will realize, in her world, facts are only shadows, and her emotions are the reality. And in this realization lies the final truth. A woman guided by emotion will always seem a mystery. But once a man understands her nature, he stops falling into the traps. He no longer mistakes her storms for chaos, but sees the hidden rhythm within them. And then he gains not power over her, but over himself, the ability to remain clear, stable, and unshaken in the eye of her storm. So we have walked through the 10 hidden weaknesses that live within a woman's heart. Each one is not merely a trait of character, but an entire universe of emotions, fears, and illusions. Attention, which becomes her addiction. Overthinking, which turns small details into disasters. Insecurity about her appearance, hidden even behind dazzling beauty. Flattery, able to pierce any wall. Impulsivity in love, which shatters logic. Fear of abandonment, which makes her a prisoner of her relationships. Emotional walls, which keep her from true closeness. Trust given to the wrong people, draining her strength. Romanticizing the past, which turns reality into myth. And finally, the rule of emotion, powerful enough to replace truth itself. A man who sees all this does not gain a weapon for manipulation, but a key to understanding. He no longer falls for smiles and masks, no longer stumbles into the traps of her emotions, no longer builds illusions. He learns to see deeper, into the place where her true motives and reactions are born. This knowledge does not make him cold or cruel. It makes him clear, composed, unshaken. In a world where most men drown in a woman's storm, the one who remains steady becomes strong. Remember this: your task is not to control a woman, but to control yourself. Her weaknesses are not cause for contempt, but a map of her inner world. But if you cannot master your own mind, if you are swept away by her tempests, you will become weak and lose yourself. A man's true strength lies in his ability to remain calm while the storm rages beside him, to see reality where others see only illusion. The one who understands these patterns becomes truly free. He does not chase approval, does not get tangled in contradictions, does not build false expectations. He remains himself, steadfast, centered, the master of his life. And then the woman either draws closer, feeling his clarity and strength, or she drifts away. But in either case, he does not lose his balance. The choice is simple: be led by someone else's emotions, or become the one who leads himself. The world always respects the strong and passes over the weak, and so your path must be the path of mastery, of the one who commands his mind and his world. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see deeper, understand more, and become stronger every single day. Here we speak not of shallow advice, but of real strategies, the kind that make a man clear, steady, and untouchable.